Li Mei was a woman with a tragic fate. She had 3 daughters, but because her husband's family favored boys over girls, they gave away their newborn daughter without telling her. Misfortunes continued to strike. Her husband died in an accident, and both daughters passed away one after another. At the end of her suffering, she placed her hope in her youngest daughter, who had been missing for over 20 years. However, years passed, and her daughter remained unseen. In 2014, through an arranged marriage, Li Mei married Sun Yong, whose husband had also passed away. Childless of her own, she poured all her love into Sun Yong's 2 children. From her children's indifference to her, they now treated her like their own mother. She sacrificed so much. Perhaps good deeds will always be rewarded. Li Mei, 55, is from Weifang City, Shandong Province. At 20, she married Yang Quan, a 22-year-old from a neighboring village. After marriage, she gave birth to 2 daughters. Later, Li Mei became pregnant again, and the Yang family hoped for a son. Unexpectedly, she gave birth to another baby girl. Her husband and his family sighed. Finally, Li Mei's father-in-law snatched the baby girl from his son's arms and walked out of the health center. Her husband was reluctant, but he dared not disobey. Li Mei was wheeled out of the delivery room, clamoring to see the baby. The husband was filled with shame. "It's a girl, and our father said he would give her away." Li Mei looked around and made sure her daughter was gone. She tore her husband's clothes like crazy. "Where's the child? Where's my child? Give her back to me." The husband said nothing even though his wife cried, pinched, and twisted him. When Li Mei had no strength left and lay on the bed crying bitterly, he knelt in front of Li Mei guiltily. "You can't bear to part with a child, and I can't bear to part with her either. But who told her she's a girl? How can we have another son if we keep her? Don't worry, Dad will find her a good family." Li Mei cried even harder. She knew that her mission in this family would only be fulfilled if she gave birth to a son. Otherwise, life would be a struggle. Gradually, she stopped crying and making a fuss, only constantly asking her husband where the 3rd girl had been sent. Her husband, usually carefree, was very cautious about this matter. No matter how hard Li Mei tried to get him to explain, he wouldn't reveal anything. As soon as Li Mei became pregnant, her husband had sent her away, telling the neighbors he was babysitting a relative's child. He was only bringing her back after she recovered, so the neighbors had no idea she had given birth to a 3rd child. But in order to legitimately go away and give birth to a son, in early 1995, her husband heard that a fellow villager was a foreman at a forest farm in the greater Xin'an Mountains in northeast China and was looking for lumberjacks. Without hesitation, he left his 2 daughters behind and took Li Mei with him to the greater Xin'an Mountains. In the following years, Li Mei became pregnant twice, but unfortunately, both pregnancies ended in miscarriage. After that, no matter how hard the couple tried, Li Mei couldn't get pregnant again. Her parents back home kept asking about it, and her husband, overwhelmed by the pressure, often resorted to drinking to drown his sorrows. When drunk, he would beat and kick Li Mei, saying he was unlucky to marry a woman who couldn't even bear a son. Li Mei was disheartened and wanted to leave her several times, but she couldn't bear to leave her 2 daughters. Furthermore, every time he sobered up, her husband would kneel before her and cry bitterly. Li Mei softened her heart and forgave him. Through the repeated beatings and apologies, Li Yingchun endured. During those difficult days, she constantly imagined, one day, when she and her husband were old, he would naturally tell her about their 3rd daughter's whereabouts. Then, mother and daughter would be able to meet again. With this hope in mind, Li Mei endured day by day deep in the greater Xin'an Mountains. 10 years passed, and before she even reached old age, misfortune struck. One day in 2006, her husband went to work drunk. Seeing his drunken eyes, Li Mei urged him to rest. He refused and insisted on going into the mountains. That afternoon, the devastating news arrived. He had been crushed to death by a falling log. Li Mei was in disbelief and on the verge of collapse. But the dead cannot be brought back to life. so she could only tearfully accept the reality. Because her husband had violated forestry regulations by working while intoxicated, he received only 60,000 yuan in compensation. With the help of her fellow workers, Li Mei handled her husband's funeral and brought his ashes back to their hometown in Shandong. By then, Li Mei's eldest daughter had graduated from college and was working in Qingdao, while her second daughter was attending university in Weifang. Beyond her heartbreak after her husband's death, Li Mei worried that the whereabouts of her third daughter would remain a mystery forever. Upon returning home, she immediately asked her father-in-law, "My husband is gone and will never have another son. Please tell me where our third daughter was sent." With a long sigh, her father-in-law told Li Mei that he had entrusted the child to a distant relative, who then gave her away. After passing through several hands, he heard she was given to a family surnamed Sun, but they had long since moved away. Unconvinced, Li Mei went looking for her, only to find out that the family had already moved away. No one knew where she had gone. The trail ended there. However, misfortune continued to plague Li Mei, and it began to befall her more frequently. In the spring of 2009, her eldest daughter was killed in a car accident in Qingdao. Li Mei rushed to Qingdao and, upon seeing her daughter's cold body at the funeral home, she hated herself for neglecting her daughter for so many years, for not even having a photo of them together. After burying her eldest daughter, Li Mei poured all her love into her second daughter, and the two remained inseparable. Unexpectedly, her second daughter, who had just graduated from college in 2010, was diagnosed with leukemia. To pay for her daughter's medical treatment, Li Mei sold her only home in her hometown. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop her daughter from dying. In the fall of 2011, her second daughter also passed away. After a series of blows, Li Mei completely collapsed. She didn't want to live in this world anymore. She refused to eat or drink and lay in bed waiting to die. Her parents-in-law and relatives and friends came to her house one after another, all urging her to think more positively and to live no matter what. Li Mei didn't listen to anyone. Finally, the words of a relative from a mountain gave her hope again. The relative said, "You still have a daughter. If you die and she comes back one day, who will she go to?" These words made Li Mei even more desperate. She cried loudly, "Can I still wait until that day?" The relative said with tears in his eyes, "Yes, we will wait with you." From then on, being able to see her little daughter in her lifetime became Li Mei's only concern, her only wish. A few years later, Li Mei's parents-in-law passed away one after another. Seeing her helpless and alone, a neighbor introduced her to a job as a cleaner at a furniture factory in Weifang City. Li Mei cherished this job and worked diligently, never being late or leaving early. After work, Li Mei searched for clues in the past and inquired about her little daughter's whereabouts. However, the time was too long, and her father-in-law's account was too vague. Despite her extensive search, she still found no clues. As they got to know each other for a long time, her colleagues all liked her very much. One close female colleague kept urging her, "Hurry up and find a partner while you're still young. Otherwise, your old age will be even more miserable." Li Mei listened. In 2013, a helpful colleague introduced her to another man. His name was Sun Yong, 4 years older than Li Mei. 2 years earlier, his wife had passed away due to illness. Fearing he would be lonely, his children took the initiative to help find a partner for their father. Upon hearing about such filial and thoughtful children, Li Mei was immediately drawn to them and agreed to meet them. The two had a good impression of each other. Sun Yong was also from Weifang and had a son and a daughter. His family had long since moved to Changji City, Shanxi Province, to live with relatives. 3 years earlier, his wife was diagnosed with advanced liver cancer. Missing his homeland, the family moved to Changji City. He returned to his hometown. Within a year, his wife passed away. Sun Yong had always been well cared for by his wife, but now that she was gone, he couldn't adjust. He'd wake up in the morning and find his socks missing, or feel thirsty only to realize he'd forgotten to boil water. His children, busy with their own jobs, couldn't care less. Seeing this, they were anxious and decided to find a partner for their father. Seeing how sensible his children were, Sun Yong wasn't opposed to it. But after meeting several blind dates, Sun Yong wasn't satisfied until he met Lee Mei. Sun Yong deeply sympathized with Lee Mei's plight. After some time together, he was impressed by her gentle and virtuous nature. When Lee Mei first met Sun Yong's children, Sun Jianguo and Sun Jianfen, she burst into tears. Especially when she learned that Sun Jianfen was also born in 1991, the same age as her youngest daughter. Lee Mei felt even closer, a special kind of kinship welling up within her. Sun Jianguo and Sun Jianfen were also extremely polite to Lee Mei, and as long as her father pleased, they would not interfere. In March 2014, Lee Mei and Sun Yong completed their marriage. After their marriage, Lee Mei moved into Sun Yong's home. Every morning, she would rise early to prepare breakfast for the whole family, and in the evening, she would meticulously prepare a hearty dinner tailored to each child's preferences. Furthermore, she diligently kept the house spotless, even hand-washing the children's underwear. Sun Yong felt sorry for her, saying that the children were grown enough to handle their own affairs. But Lee Mei refused. She felt her children were busy with work and under pressure. So as a mother, she needed to help out whenever she could. Although Lee Mei meticulously cared for Sun Yong and his family, she was still a stepmother, and the children were all adults, so their affection for her was largely polite and unlikely to be warm. This was especially true for her daughter, Sun Jianfen, who had always had a close relationship with their mother. While she supported her father's search for a partner, that didn't mean she wanted to find a mother for herself. Once, while cleaning her room, Lee Mei accidentally broke a framed photo of her and her daughter on her desk. Sun Jianfen flew into a rage and bluntly told Lee Mei, "Please don't touch my things anymore, especially those my mother left me. And don't think that just because you married my father, you've replaced my mother." Despite Sun Yong's reprimand, Lee Mei remained deeply aggrieved. She never considered herself a stepmother. She simply believed in treating everyone in her family with sincerity. Sun Jianfen, the same age as her youngest daughter, was particularly cherished by Lee Mei. But what made Lee Mei even more aggrieved was that, from then on, Sun Jianfen targeted her at every turn. Whenever something happened, she would speak in a strange tone, sarcastically claiming she had ulterior motives. Over time, Lee Mei felt deeply heartbroken, convinced that it was impossible to raise someone else's child. At these moments, Lee Mei missed her youngest daughter intensely, imagining what kind of family she had met, and whether she would suffer the same discrimination and indifference as herself. These thoughts filled Lee Mei with sadness, and she secretly shed tears. In January 2015, 24-year-old Sun Jianfen married her colleague Yang Fan. On the wedding day, looking at Sun Jianfen newly dressed, Lee Mei burst into tears, her thoughts returning to her youngest daughter. 2 months later, Sun Jianfen became pregnant. Lee Mei devoured her with various nutritional supplements every day. However, Sun Jianfen would vomit after eating, so Lee Mei immediately made her new meals without a word. People are all made of flesh and blood. Seeing how her stepmother treated her, Sun Jianfen's heart warmed up a little bit. In December 2015, Sun Jianfen was about to give birth, and her entire family waited anxiously outside the delivery room. When the nurse emerged from the delivery room carrying a chubby baby, the family beamed. But before their smiles faded, the doctor announced anxiously that the woman was suffering from severe postpartum hemorrhage and urgently needed type O blood. However, the health center's blood bank was depleted, and blood from the county hospital was still on its way. The doctor immediately asked the family to donate blood, but her husband, father, and brother all had a different blood type than Sun Jianfen's. In the midst of this anxiety, Lee Mei rolled up her sleeves and said to the doctor, "I'm type O. Take mine." Immediately, 800 milliliters of bright red blood flowed from Lee Mei's veins into Sun Jianfen's. Thanks to the timely transfusion, Sun Jianfen was soon out of danger. After the transfusion, Lee Mei didn't go home to rest. "You men don't understand women giving birth, and you can't take care of them well. I'll stay." Yang Fan was so moved that he choked up. "Thank you, Mom." When Sun Jinfin woke up and learned from her husband everything Li Mei had done for her, she was in disbelief and threw herself into Li Mei's arms, bursting into tears. Under Li Mei's meticulous care, Sun Jinfin recovered well, and her grandson Lele grew up plump and fair. After her maternity leave, Sun Jinfin returned to work. Li Mei asked Sun Jinfin to bring Lele home and raise him for her. Fearing Sun Jinfin's concern, she assured her, "Don't worry, I'll treat Lele like my own grandson." Sun Jinfin's heart softened. She hugged Li Mei and kissed her, saying, "Mom, take care of Lele. Why should I worry?" This time, Li Mei smiled until tears welled up in her eyes. From then on, Sun Jinfin and Li Mei had an enviable relationship. Previously, Sun Jinfin had shown little concern for Li Mei and paid no attention to her preferences. Now, she discovered that Li Mei particularly loved watching the CCTV program Waiting for Me, and she burst into tears every time she watched it. One time, she saw Li Mei cry in front of the TV again and jokingly asked, "Mom, why are you crying like this?" Unexpectedly, Li Mei cried even harder. Sun Jinfin panicked and kept asking Li Mei what was wrong. Li Mei cried for a long time before she choked up and told Sun Jinfin about her youngest daughter. Sun Jinfin sighed and quickly comforted Li Mei. "Mom, don't lose heart. I will help you look for her." After that, Sun Jinfin accompanied Li Mei to search for all the relatives of her in-laws' family. After many twists and turns, the result was the same as Li Mei's own search back then. Basically nothing. The hope that had just been ignited was extinguished again. Li Mei's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. She sighed and said, "It seems that I will never see this daughter again in this life. Forget it. I don't hold out any hope anymore." Sun Jinfin was very sad and tried to comfort her, saying, "The internet is well developed now. We can put ads in newspapers and go on TV to look for her." Li Mei held Sun Jinfin's hand, tears streaming down her face. In order to help her stepmother find her biological daughter, Sun Jinfin also asked Sun Jiangwo to come and help with the search. The brother and sister often discussed this at home. Sun Yong was also moved after hearing this. He didn't expect that his stepmother had such a sad past. However, as Li Mei recounted more and more about what happened that year, Sun Yong became more and more silent. Once, the family was having dinner, and Sun Jinfin said to Li Mei, "Mom, don't you like watching Waiting for Me? Let's call the Waiting for Me program team." Before she finished speaking, Sun Yong slammed the chopsticks in his hand on the table and shouted, "What kind of good thing is this? It's causing a lot of trouble." Seeing Sun Yong angry, everyone was stunned. Li Mei felt very uncomfortable. "My husband has 2 children, so doesn't he have the right to find his biological daughter?" During that time, Li Mei ignored Sun Yong out of anger, and his children didn't care how he tried to stop them. They were still busy looking for her. July 26, 2016 was his ex-wife's birthday. Sun Yong, without notifying anyone, went to visit his deceased wife's grave early in the morning. He didn't return until the evening. He called Sun Jiangwo, Sun Jinfin, and Yang Fan back home. When the children were all present, he slowly said, "Today I'm going to your mother's grave to discuss something with her. I've decided to tell you something I've kept secret for over 20 years. It turned out that over 20 years ago, Sun Yong was injured in a car accident and could no longer have children. His wife had longed for a daughter. One day in 1991, an acquaintance approached Sun Yong about a 6-day-old baby girl and asked if he would like to have one. After confirming the child's origins and medical condition, the two decided to adopt her and named her Sun Jinfin. Fearing gossip, they moved in a week later with relatives who contracted a coal mine in Changji City, Shaanxi Province. Sun Jinfin was stunned by her father's words. For the first time, she learned that she was adopted. She walked up to her father crying, "Dad, for so many years, you have treated me like your own daughter, even better than my brother. Now, even if I know the truth, I am still your daughter, and I will never change it in this life." Sun Yon was moved to tears by his daughter's words, but his next words were like a bomb, leaving everyone stunned. The day we went to pick up Jinfin was February 16th. Later, my husband and I deliberately said that she was born in May. We were just afraid that her biological parents would come to look for her. She might be your daughter. I suggest you do a paternity test. Li Mei couldn't believe it and burst into tears again. Why didn't you tell me earlier? What if I died of a sudden illness? What are your intentions? Sun Jinfin was also helpless at the trick of fate. She looked at her father, then her mother, then burst into tears and rushed out of the house. After several days of turmoil, the family finally reached a consensus. On August 16, 2016, Li Mei and Sun Jinfin arrived at the Weifang City Paternity Testing Center in Shandong Province. After submitting their application documents and leaving a blood sample, they returned home. That week felt particularly long for Li Mei and Sun Jinfin. On August 25th, they returned to Paternity Testing Center. Sun Jinfin, with trembling hands, opened the test report. It read, "Based on the DNA analysis results, a parent-child relationship is established between the test subjects, Li Mei and Sun Jinfin." Overwhelmed with joy and sorrow, Sun Jinfin threw herself into Li Mei's arms and burst into tears. Li Mei, holding her biological daughter, who had been separated for over 20 years, wept heartbreakingly. The family wept and laughed together. Fate's generous gifts always have a cause and effect and never deviate.